With it being 6 o'clock, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for your attendance. I'm Greg Stumpff, Public Works Supervisor for the City of Newcastle. This presentation is fairly long. In the interest of time, we've placed pens and paper on the tables. We would request you hold your questions till the end of the meeting or end of the presentation and step up to the podium so it's easier for the newspaper to record your statements. We're here to discuss a rate analysis prepared by Carl Brown with Getting Great Rates. This is a comprehensive, detailed report with a plan to completely restructure our rates, not just a rate analysis. We did discuss the needs and why the rates need to be adjusted. We'll discuss also why we are where we are. The City Council contracted with Carl Brown with Getting Great Rates to analyze water, sewer, and sanitation or garbage rates. This was a complex project, about 10 months long. Carl Brown has done over 385 analyses. I actually met him and sat through one of his presentations a few years back at Rural Water Conference. Here are a couple of quotes from Carl's report discussing the need to pass the information on. That's why we're here tonight. We will supply the full rate analysis PDF. We can email it to you, or you can bring in a flash drive and we can record it or put it on a flash drive for you. For paper copies, we follow the Freedom of Information Act and set a price of $10.95 to recover costs to print off the 177-page report. There really is no bottom line to this subject, other than our infrastructure is at the end of its life. Because of past events, this council is forced to make difficult decisions that affect our community. Part of the puzzle pieces is a capital improvements plan, our debt service and what we need to do for that, equipment replacements, etc. As I said, this project took 10 months to complete. We had two major changes in the project, had to start over, almost over during one of them. There are many parts to setting the rates, also building the plans for the near and far future. We looked at anything that would cost significant amounts of money, including our O&M, operations and maintenance costs. We focused heavily on the capital improvements projects we had planned, as well as all of our equipment replacements. We discussed at length with Carl all the funding options that we have available for replacements and for capital improvements. We planned asset replacements in our pump stations or control stations and our wells. One example is we just in 2020 replaced a control valve in one of our control stations that was installed in 1968. It was supposed to be 30 years replacement. We planned all of our equipment and vehicle replacements in water, sewer, and solid waste. We did plan to change some of our rate schedules. We decided we better replace our garbage trucks since they're not lasting as long as they used to. We decreased that to 7 years. Where we really focused a lot of our energy was on the capital improvements plan and the infrastructure projects that needed to be done. We chose projects due to their continual failures, the criticality of the infrastructure, threatened personal property, past water master plans, water quality issues, and other factors. Unfortunately, we did not have a water master plan completed by the time we completed the rate analysis. On your table, you'll see this sheet here. This is our 10-year capital improvements plan. This is the next lines that we're going to fix or the next lines we're going to replace. We took the current costs of our projects that we're doing right now, use the numbers to estimate the cost on these projects. The projects are for water, sewer, and street improvements and replacements. This list will likely change over time due to other needs arising. We looked at our current debt service and what loans we have, which are typically SRF matching funds from Wyoming Water Development Commission projects. One example is our Well 5 project that we recently completed. Currently, we pay $66,802.61 a year in debt service. We looked at the reserve funds, or he made recommendations for the reserve funds, and reserve funds are for project overruns, 7th Avenue on that project there. We spent 2 days looking for the water main because our maps were inaccurate. It cost to do that exploratory digging. Because of frequency of breaks on 1st Avenue, the council allowed us to do an emergency replacement on that water main. Also, the reserve funds can be used for grant matches. ARPA funds became available. We had a unique opportunity. We only had to pay 14% of the project if we come up with the match funds. The reserve funds are for these purposes. We just recently completed our water master plan. If anybody wants a copy of that, we can provide that too digitally. Our capital improvements plan does include several of the projects in the water master plan. One of the recommendations from the water master plan was to build an AC pipe replacement program. Currently, we have 82,916 feet of old AC pipe still in service. That's 15.69 miles of pipe, out of a total of 32.37 miles. This is just about half of all our pipes still needs to be replaced. The replacement plan program was actually was recommended to be done within the next 15 years. At 3,500 feet per year, or a cost just for the water of $2.8 million. While we're discussing the aging infrastructure, we looked at the history of Newcastle. In 1949, the city of Newcastle purchased enough pipe to replace all the old undersized steel pipe. By 1960, the city was repairing 3 leaks per day because they installed cast iron pipe in the 1950s. They quickly found out that cast iron pipe corrodes in our soils. The entire system needed to be replaced again only after 10 years. The city developed its first water master plan. They started the major replacement project that included replacing all the cast iron pipe with AC pipe. AC pipe is asbestos cement pipe. The asbestos content is very low, about 14%. We do sample for asbestos in our system regularly and have not found any in the water. When this took place in the 1960s and early 70s, around 10 years to replace everything. It also means, there are water mains that were installed prior to the 1960s. We found out. We set the useful life at 55 years for AC pipe because we start seeing the failures in 50 years to 60 years typically. The sewer system, we had a more difficult time finding any records on it. Most of the records were destroyed in 1949. The old part of town was all built, sewer system was all built prior to 1949. We've had a difficult time getting an age on it. With the projects like Frontier Edition, the avenues, we know roughly what year those were put in. Most of our system is vitrified clay pipe or clay tile pipe. We start seeing large failures in this pipe around 7 years. So we set the useful life at 70. With what happened in the 1960s and most of the system being replaced inside of 10 years, means we're looking at needing to do a similar thing. Or likely face 3 leaks per day. The difference in the leaks they had in the 1960s is they had pinhole leaks in cast iron, where we see catastrophic failures of the AC pipe. We average 8 water main failures per year, 10 water service line failures per year, and about 4 sewer main failures per year. Examples of this is one of our recent breaks, July 15th, 2024. We broke the line behind Napa. It's a AC pipe on South Road, a 10-inch. The water pressure dropped to 0 psi from 2nd Avenue to about West End Park. This section of pipe had 17 different cracks in the pipe, ranging anywhere from 6 to 18 inches long. Similar to this pipe we have on display. The repair for this cost of the repair for this was $15,000. We replaced 15 foot.
Again, I respect him coming into the lion's den. Weston County is notoriously conservative. And JD came in and stood at the front of a room where he knew he was in the minority and took questions, which is better than I can say for others from that wing of the party. That's my problem. So you know, Chip not getting a chance to respond, hey, through no fault of our own or no fault of the Freedom Caucus, because the Freedom Caucus shows up, they've kind of had the stage to themselves. But for JD Williams to do something that you know, Ogden wouldn't do, you know, Liz Cheney wouldn't do. I mean, who he gets lumped in with, he came right up and he saw people and he talked to people.
The repair for this cost of the repair for this was $15,000. We replaced 15 foot. First York Street line break this year, next to the cemetery, happened on August 18th, 8:38 p.m. was when we noticed, or when we found out about the break. Water was shut off at 10:14 p.m. Pressure dropped to 0 psi for all customers east of the city, east of the cemetery, including the hospital, the manor, 3 motels, over 120 homes, the grade school, and other businesses. This pipe on display is actually from that break. The pipe failure we determined was due to delaminated AC pipe, which means it just starts flaking apart. This repair was around $16,000. And since our last town hall, York Street line broke again. It was reported at 7:18 a.m. The water was shut off at 8 a.m. We connected our current repair to an older repair. Right over here on this side, you can see there's PVC and a connector. This piece of pipe here is one that broke. We ended up connecting to another repair. We replaced 7 feet of the pipe before we pressured the line up and flushed it and was ready to call it quits. We noticed water coming out of a valve box that shuts off the fire hydrant close to where we were at. That was about 6 o'clock at night. We started, like I said, at 7:18. We dug the valve up, found out that the bolts were rotted off in the valve. So we had to replace the bolts in the valve and finished that about 9:30 at night. Turned the water back on, and there's something else leaking. It held for an hour and a half, so we're not suspecting the pipe, but we don't know what it is. We notified as many customers as we could about us shutting the water off overnight. We came back 7 o'clock the next morning, started again. Because of the complexity of the repair we were going to have to do, we opted to put another valve in, pass the last tap, and shut the main off until we can get fresh locates and continue the repair. Right now, as it sits, that's $19,900 we spent, and we haven't even finished it. There's this piece of paper on your table. This is from our current water master plan. It shows what pipe we have where. The stuff in red, the lines in red are not needing replaced right now. The stuff in green and blue are. They're the AC pipe, some copper, and some cast iron. The engineering firm that was hired to do our master plan is when it came up with this.
Could you repeat those colors?
Green should be, green is asbestos pipe, blue is cast iron and copper, the red is PVC.
And which is current?
PVC is the newest pipe. The blues and the green need to be replaced yet. While doing the rate analysis, we went through our funding opportunities. We reviewed everything we could with Carl during the rate analysis. We were forced to revise the rate analysis twice in the process of doing this due to funding changes. State revolving fund is one of our largest funding agencies. It's federal monies passed down from EPA to the states. It's a loan combination, which means we have a loan portion and then we have a principal forgiveness portion similar to a grant. They changed our funding from 50% principal forgiveness to 25% principal forgiveness. So out of $1 million project prior to them changing it, we would have only had to pay back $500,000. Now we have to pay back $750,000. The rest of the funding is in a loan. Typically low interest, starts out at 2.5%. The other funding agency we use quite a bit is Wyoming Water Development Commission, or WWDC. This is a state-funded agency. We'll use these within our capital improvements projects. We have to revise our rate analysis already again because when we started this, we had 67% grant portion of the funds and 33% our responsibility. Well, they just switched that to 50-50. We lost another 17% of funding. Mineral royalty grant, MRG, is also a state-funded source. It's typically small amounts of money, less than $1 million. It can be used for emergencies, like in Wheatland, their water tank started leaking, and they have to do a full replacement of the tank. We do have to come up with 50% of the funding with that. Other funding opportunities, rural development, USDA rural development. These are higher interest loans than SRF. They have even more federal requirements than what SRF does, but it is similar to SRF. We are not eligible for any grant portion of this at all. It's all loan. ARPA was a unique one-time funding opportunity that came about due to COVID. We did take advantage of this. We most likely will not see this opportunity again for quite some time. The federal government utilizes the SRF to manage the funds. Other than the SRF with the loan and the principal forgiveness, there's little to no opportunities for funding. Since SRF is one of our biggest funding opportunities, I figured I'd go into it in a little more detail. I've included certain items that they go through when they set our principal forgiveness, our interest rate, this sort of stuff. This is incredibly important because it directly affects the rates that we pay, that our customers pay for their rates, so we can repay the loans. They use the AMHI, average median household income, as their biggest factor. EPA has stated they want to see customers pay 2% of their annual median household income for the community in water and a separate 2% in sewer. Wyoming Water Development Commission will utilize these for several of our capital improvements projects. They fund transmission mains, wells, and storage tanks. They will not fully fund a project because of other distribution system parts. Water service lines, meter pits, taps are not covered under their funding. Again, they were at 67% grant, now we're at 50%. Our current rates are not adequate to pay for the necessary future needs and replacements for the water and sewer systems, as well as pay for the two major projects we have for the garbage system, solid waste. We essentially set a budget for 10 years, the next 10 years, including our projects, our planned replacements, and Carl built the rates around that budget. We have raised rates between the test year of 2022-2023 fiscal year to current. He reviewed the affordability index. This looks at the community's AMHI, or annual median household income, compares it to the state's AMHI, and then looks at the national average of 1%. Currently, Newcastle's AMHI is $66,830. The state's is $68,002. The affordability index shows that the rate increase would take it to 0.9% for water, 0.62 for sewer. I believe, when I look back, 0.86 for the garbage. The city funds that we use for these projects are strictly enterprise funds. Title 15 of the state statute governs municipalities. It requires to have enterprise account funds for water, sewer, and solid waste. They're required to be self-sustaining. The only part of an infrastructure project that we can use tax dollars on is the street portion. Everything else has to be paid for out of the water, sewer, enterprise funds. The project funding will pay for 10 feet over top of the sewer or 10 feet over the top of the water. 7th Avenue, 20 feet, 30-foot wide road, 20 foot of it was paid for with the project. We still have to come up with tax dollars out of our city street budget to pay for the additional 10 feet of road that needed work done. The rodeo Sheridan Street project we have planned, $1.2 million is the street portion of the project out of a total of $4.2 million. Again, the local tax dollars are only used for the bullet ones listed. There were some changes we had to make in the actual study. We started out with models 1 and 2. 1 is the current rate we would be looking at increasing to, proposed rate. Model 2, or 3 and 4 in this case, was a 50% increase in the rates to help pay for increase in cost down the road. Because of the changes we had to make, it was easier for them just to start over with the new model rather than rebuild the model 1 and 2. Some of Carl's recommendations, right now we have a usage allowance with base service, 2,000 gallons for the base rate. He recommends we only have the base rate and customers would pay for gallon 1. If we keep the $2,000 or 2,000 gallons included, we would either have to lose $164,393 or increase rates to cover the $164,000. Residential sewer recommendations, he agrees with us doing the summer averaging. Currently, we use residential customers winter rates in order to bill for this during the summertime, so you're not paying for irrigation water going down the sewer. This is a table A showing the tap fees based on tap size that he recommends. It also shows the base rate and the per 1,000 gallon rate for inside city limits. Table B is for the outside city limit rates for water. Table E is for sewer rates inside the city. This chart shows the rates recommended for sanitation for garbage rates. Our rates were really, I don't know how we ever come about the 300 gallon containers and how we broke down who paid what, but it was really difficult to figure out. This, Carl spent quite a bit of time restructuring the garbage rates. On your table, you have table 18. You can look at the comparisons. In table 18, you have water, sewer, and sanitation rates that are recommended. The column that says gallons used, you can look at a water bill and compare this usage to your water bill. And this is the billed rate for that number of gallons. We also have table 18 for the sewer. And keep in mind, this is the increase in rates was based on 22-23. We did a rate increase last year, so there's a smaller rate increase recommended this year. And then the sanitation rates. To recap Carl Brown's recommendations for the water, currently we pay, there's a base rate of $19.50. We're able to use 2,000 gallons. The proposed base rate would go to $33.82 with no gallons allowed. Our current per 1,000 rate is $4.60 per 1,000. It would increase to $4.79 per 1,000. He also recommended small increases each year of around 4% with a reevaluation every 5 years. His recommendations for the sewer is to continue with the sewer averaging, where we use the winter rates to bill the summer usage, so you're not paying for irrigation. The base rate right now is $21.53 for 2,000 gallons. The base rate would be $16.63 with no gallons allowed. Our current per 1,000 rate is $6 per 1,000. The proposed per 1,000 rate would be about $3.88 per 1,000.
The new store. This is the one-stop shop. We have a pharmacy, we have a bootlegger's liquor, the deli, the food that you can get at a lunchtime is so amazing. The coffee shop. Certain Friday mornings, there's 30 people sitting here in all these chairs. This is the hub for people to come and visit, have their coffee, have their donuts. It's amazing what this area has done. Totally amazing.
Our current per 1,000 rate is $6 per 1,000. The proposed per 1,000 rate would be about $3.88 per 1,000. His recommendations for the solid waste, currently one 95-gallon container dumped one time per week is $20.10 per month. The new rate for one 95-gallon container dumped one time per week would be $32.19, an increase of $12.09. Reserve accounts, he set targets for reserve accounts, which typically should be about 25% of your annual working capital. This rate would be built up over time, not all in 1 year. We use reserve accounts, like I said, First Avenue emergency replacement, South Road emergency replacement, overruns on projects, as well as match funds for grant opportunities. The debt service, to help understand the SRF loan that will be incurred over the next 10 years and what we pay now. Right now we pay $66,802 a year in debt service. By the end of year 10, with the capital improvements we have planned, we would be paying over $1.6 million a year. SRF loan terms are for 20 years, and the interest varies depending on what all we do to decrease the interest rate. The percentage of increase on the total water bill will be 18.28%. The difference between an average water bill, which used 6,713 gallons for the average usage, would increase the bill $21.76. We spent quite a bit of time on setting this proposed budget for the next 10 years. The infrastructure budget alone is $46 million. The only way to increase the budget is increase rates or receive more grant funding. With a grant, we would take, like we recently received for the 2025 improvements project, we received $1 million. That offsets the cost for $1 million in another project, while still remaining within the budget. Biggest takeaways from this project was the need to plan, the need to reevaluate on a regular basis and do small increases instead of large ones like what we're doing, and reevaluate the budget on a regular basis. So it's easier for the newspaper. If you have any questions, you can come up to the podium and ask, or any statements.
Thanks, Greg. I was writing stuff down as you was going through it, so building season. So I had wrote down, you had mentioned there was 8 breaks per year. What's the average cost of those breaks? I know you mentioned a couple of them through this on York Street and the one on First Avenue. So kind of giving everybody an idea of what the cost is of these annual breaks that we're having.
Last year, looking at it, we spent over $75,000 in breaks. We're averaging about $2,100 per foot to do a repair, where we're paying $210 per foot to have a contractor actually replace the line.
Okay. But just taking the 2 that we had, close to $19,000, if we did them, we've got $120,000. So, they're $75,000, $80,000 a year. That's taken out of the city budget right away.
Yes, and that Delaware and York project for the water and sewer was $889,000.
Okay.
I have a question about the sanitation rate restructuring. It's like the vast majority of Newcastle residents fall under a category that's going to be facing the largest increases, approximately 60% increases, while most of the rest of the customers are going to be getting substantial discounts. I'm curious why there isn't a more equal fee across the board, kind of even that out.
One of the reasons, talking with Carl about that one, basically our sanitation rates were unfair to start with. It weighed heavily on the customers with 300-gallon containers where we stopped one time per week. And they got a large amount of garbage, where if we, with the 95 gallons, we'll make multiple stops for the same amount of garbage. The rates, he said, were not structured very well to start with. Thank you.
You had a ton of data, and it went by so fast that we couldn't read anything on the screen. So I'm totally confused. You're now saying that, well, those of us that have been careful with water in January, February, and March, so that we'll get a lower utility bill, that's out the window, right? That's just out the door, doesn't matter now. Because there is no base. You don't have a 3,000 month minimum, and then you get to be on the cheapest rate. Now it starts at zero and you charge us something and then add on top of it how much we use.
Correct. The reason for that is, so the base rate that he's recommending with the no gallonage is basically to make sure we have enough operating costs and enough debt service money to pay for the loans, to pay for our operating expenses. The overages that are with a per 1,000 gallon price works into partially the debt service and then more O&M costs as well. It also helps build the reserves, and a few of our planned projects we're actually paying for ourselves without doing a loan later on in the, I think about year 8 we started that.
So I'm thinking in terms of what this is going to cost me, not what you're paying, because I need to know. Now you're saying if I have to use more water in a month, then my bill's going to go up, and you're going to be tracking on every bill how much water I use, and that reflects on how much sewer I get charged also. So both bills are going to go up if I happen to do 6 more loads of laundry in a month.
The sewer bill is actually going to decrease. Water portion of the bill will increase, and so will the sanitation. Sanitation is going up because we have two major expenses coming up. 2025, we have the landfill one remediation. It's a project to collect contaminated groundwater. It's estimated to be a $3.5 million project. With Newcastle City, Newcastle closing our landfill for the DEQ request. That project we're estimating between $4 to $6 million. We're not sure yet, because the last time the cost was analyzed was 2017. Prices are so out of control right now that we can't even begin to get a close estimate until we reevaluate. That's the biggest portion point. Plus, with sanitation, the city will be paying the tipping fee instead of operating the landfill. So we're paying, what you're paying to go into the landfill now, we will also have to pay to collect the garbage and get rid of it.
So how am I supposed to budget for this? Because you just raised all my rates enough. How do I budget? It's changing every month, and I don't, we don't waste water, ever. But now I still have no idea what it's going to cost me. and I'm carrying 60% of the load for the overall expense. So how is that, you know, something costs $4 million, how does that play out to all the people that live here, all the different homes that are here? How does that divide up so that we can budget and know what it's going to cost us for our utilities, even know if we're upset about it or not?
Yeah, that's what the table 18 is for, is to show you per thousand what price it would be.
Yeah, you went through it so fast, I have no idea what you said or how it plays out. Because I couldn't find the numbers you were saying on these, except for on one of them. I figured out on the sanitation that it went from 20 to 32. If we get our garbage picked up once a week. But none of the numbers you said were matching any of the numbers I could find here. Of course, you were going through pretty fast. But I never could find a number that told me where I am, what I've got. You know, it's a list of numbers, doesn't mean anything. So
The column that says build model rates, that is what people will pay per thousand for the water. Same column for the sewer as well.
So,
On the table.
and this includes your basic that everybody's got to pay no matter what, just because they get water, whether they use any or not. So that's included in this figure here.
Yeah.
Okay, that would have helped if you said that.
Sorry, it's only my second time.
I'm going, so I'm at $22.91 to your $33 a month that you just said it's going to cost us.
Yeah, see, like,
That's a lot of money. That's a big change. So that helps, at least it's not $50 a month, no matter whether
yeah, and the difficult part for us is with all three enterprise funds and enterprise services in the same bill, when somebody asks about their water bill, we have to include all three of them because they're all three included. So the one slide, this is probably the one that's the most important.
Yeah, you went through it so fast, I couldn't even take notes on it. So I got lost on it. So the increase in the current average utility bill will be 18.28%, which turns out to be $21.76 increase
Correct.
or the total amount to pay,
Yeah,
which,
that would be the total amount.
That would be the
Based on
total.
the 6,713 units.
so if you average these, so if you use less than that, then your
Your bill would be lower.
bill will be less than that. Because we never used it over the 3,000.
Yeah,
That used
typically,
to be the minimum, I thought.
typically, a household will use about 1,000 gallons per person per month. It's kind of a national average that we use. Some people use more, some people use less, but on the average, per person per household, not including irrigation, you should be using around 1,000 gallons per person per month. But there are households that use significantly more, so we had to average it to come up with an average increase. Mr. Brown, we gave him, correct me if I'm wrong, Stacy, we gave him 12 months worth of water bills for every single customer we have. So we had water, sewer, and garbage we paid every month for a 12-month period. And I can get you a copy of this if you like.
Because I can't remember all that, and it's too much to write down on this. But, you know, I came because I want to know how it's going to affect us. I realize there hasn't been, you know, nothing, it hasn't looked ahead long enough to know that everything's getting old, just like all the rest of us. And that should have been addressed 30 years ago, before the infrastructure was at the end of its life, much less beyond its life, 20 years. So I'm going, you know, I'm going to do something, I save money so that I can go pay for it. And it hasn't been done. So sadly, we're paying the price now because of lack of foresight. But it's got to start somewhere, I guess. So I get it, but
And unfortunately, with what we're seeing in the rates in the last few years, with pipe failures like this, it's only going to get worse, unfortunately. These are different cracks that didn't leak. And that's a 2-foot section of pipe from York Street. There's a section of Delaware Avenue in York we actually have shut off, cannot turn back because every time we turn it on, another spot like this will go on.
It's 30 years past its prime, or past its expected date.
Yeah,
But
AC pipe, they say will last 75 years, and like I said, we're seeing failures in 50 years. So,
okay,
we're just trying to stay ahead of the game a little bit. Instead of paying $15,000 to $2,000 per foot for replacement, do it in a project where it costs the city less money in the overall scheme of things.
is there somebody looking for grants?
Yes, I am, primarily.
Those really help,
Yeah, they do,
especially
unfortunately.
poor little towns.
Yeah. That ARPA money that we put in for, this is the whole article for the Casper Star Tribune. It talks about legal, and they won't be able to use the money because of issues with time constraints. Rawlins, I don't know if you heard about what happened in Rawlins over Labor Day. They had 6 water mains break at the same time. They had a pressure fluctuation and blew pipes all over town. There's Rock Springs in here, there's Kemmer, Diamondville. You know, it's not, this isn't something that's unique to Newcastle. It's statewide, and actually it's national. Here's a water main break rates. They did a survey here 2 years ago and put together this with a comprehensive analysis of over 400,000 miles of pipe and what needs to happen in the U.S. We have different rates from all over the state of Wyoming. AWWA actually produces a rate analysis each year, and unfortunately it's happening here. With the thought that, I hate to throw people under the bus, but quite honestly, the federal government isn't giving us enough money to really help. They're interested in us running or operating our own systems and paying for our own systems. In one of my grant management classes that I recently went to, they said 64% of all federal grants go to health and human services. Less than 1% of federal grants goes to water sewer infrastructure. That's how much of an offset there is. But we are seeking grants in every quarter we possibly can. If that's all the questions, we'll conclude this town hall fence. Does that work?
In addition to the weekly printed version of the newsletter journal, we also promote our community and share important information on our award-winning website, newslj.com, and in our weekly email newsletter, Nuke Now. We also connect with readers through various social media platforms and invite you to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can even take a look at a recent meeting of the City Council, School Board, or County Commission on our YouTube channel. We do hope that you will go to newslj.com and subscribe today, and we look forward to making all of our great content available to you. But regardless of your level of support, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for doing your part to preserve a free and independent local press.